What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. My name is Zach Hernandez. I'm joined by my friend Matt Llewellyn. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Let's jump into it, Zach.
Let's jump into it. So with the situation going on right now, rookies are kind of heading into an uncertain future with their rookie year in the NFL. Matt, is this situation gonna provide any sort of setbacks to rookies like it did the 2011 lockout year?
It could potentially. I do think there's definitely going to be some level of difficulty for the rookies. Although I do know that they've been having, Zoom meetings about, different players with like playbooks and stuff like that. So they at least have that going for them. But with the uncertainty and what's going to go on with training camps and where they're going to be and how much they're going to be able to do, how many people are going to be able to be gathered, are you going to be able to sit in that wide receiver room and watch film together, provided that you have the space? It very well could cause some growth issues. And it's also going to largely be position dependent. Somebody like Javon Kinlaw is going to have a lot less on his plate than Brandon Ayuk will have. Kyle's offense is notoriously difficult to learn, and it takes a long time to learn the verbiage and knowing exactly what you need to do. I know Deebo Samuel has kind of stated that he struggled early on last year in the season. So the onus will be on the coaches to kind of try to simplify it and make that adjustment as simply as possible. But, for certain positions, quarterback, wide receiver, and a few others, it's going to be a harder transition than it would be for a running back or like a defensive tackle, where your job is to just, boom, hit the hole and either, tackle somebody or run the ball or whatever, So it's a large fluid situation, but I would be foolish to think that there wouldn't be some level of drop off in comparison to years past just because of the situation we're in.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest point that you covered right there, is that there's still some level of contact. There's still some level of, getting to know the system. Whereas when the lockout year, there was absolutely none, right? I think I remember Alex Smith getting some players together and they were kind of holding their own meetings, holding their own off-season activities, but no coaches were allowed to talk to anybody, nothing like that. It's different this year. Coaches are allowed to reach out. Like you said, they're having Zoom meetings. They're probably able to start getting on the playbook whenever they are able to. So it's not going to be quite as bad as the lockout year, but I mean, it would be, like you said, kind of foolish to think that there's not going to be any setbacks or they're not going to be facing any sort of challenges that wouldn't be there if the situation wasn't currently ongoing. And exactly, like you said, again, wide receivers, guys like that, quarterbacks, that's a lot on their plate, and they're going to have, smaller time to get used to it, a smaller time to learn the system, or, at least not have as much help as they should have, or they normally would have. So that's going to be definitely something to keep an eye on. Do you think that the NFL as a whole will see players, rookies specifically, kind of not have as big or translate as smoothly into the NFL this year? Do you think they're going to have like a year gap now?
I mean, I think there should be a grace period. I mean, you look at somebody like Joe Burrow, who's going to go to Cincinnati, and they're throwing a fat playbook at him and saying, hey, learn this playbook, but we don't know if you're going to have an entire training camp with the other players. We don't know what you're going to be able to do in terms of practice or preparation with coaches. So in those circumstances, I do think that there does need to be a little bit of leeway, because there's going to be some struggles. Speaking of the 49ers, everybody was super excited about, this is Jimmy's second full year in Kyle's, offense, being able to play. Well, once again, he's going to have an off season that he can't function normally. Last year it was because he was recovering from the ACL and he had to take all that time off. And this year it's, unforeseen circumstances that are happening, in the world right now. And it's just one of those things where, players transitioning from old teams to new teams. I think there's going to be struggles all across the league because there's so much uncertainty right now that, as important as football is to these players, it's going to take somewhat of a backseat to the procedural aspects of what's going on and being safe and, not having full access to everything that they need to take the steps that they need to become the best players possible in as quick a time as possible. So there's definitely going to be some fall off. I think that should be expected. But, at the end of the day, they're all professionals. And, if there's fall off for some, there's going to be fall off for others. I think it'll all even out at the end. So, maybe it'll be a situation where the football's a little sloppier in the first couple weeks, and then it kind of picks up from there. There's no telling right now, but I do think that there will be effects on players and coaches too.
Now, with all that being said, do you think that us fans should kind of temper our expectations, not expect so much, especially out of the rookies coming into their first year with this stunted off season? Do you think that fans should kind of go into that with the caveat knowing, hey, this guy wasn't able to get a full offseason in, wasn't able to, communicate with coaches in person. So I'm not going to expect, 10 sacks out of Javon Kinlaw or 700 yards out of Brandon Ayuk like you would expect going into a normal season.
I mean, I would always caution fans to temper their expectations on everything. I know that they won't. We all know that they won't, but I think that they should. It's not going to matter. Once they're in the thick of the season and the fans are watching it, and everybody's dying for live sports. When the fans finally get there, it's going to be a situation where they're going to fall into the same habits that they always have. It's easy to look at something in the moment and say, man, they really need X, Y, Z, but as you get further along and the situation's kind of further away, you kind of forget that, it's kind of like when you look at something and a game, right? And maybe the team loses and a star player plays really, really well. At the beginning, they're like, man, that guy played really, really well. But then the further you get away from it, they're like, well, they just lost. And the context is missing when the further you get away from something. So I think at the beginning, a lot of people are going to get leeway from the fans, and the fans will be understanding a little bit more than usual. But as we get further away, they're just going to fall into the same old habits. And it's hard not to get emotionally charged with this stuff. But, ideally, everybody would kind of take a step back and analyze the situation and realize, hey, it's not ideal for anybody. And expectations should kind of be, held in check because of that.
Yeah, I think it's funny the way you said that, fans should, but they won't. Unfortunately, that's just the case. I mean, they know this going in. It's affecting everybody. The NFL and players are, not different from anybody else being affected by this. But it's like, I wouldn't be surprised week 4, week 5, people are already calling these guys busts, unfortunately. But yeah, I agree with you. We have to temper expectations as you should normally, but even more so this year, just because of the ongoing situation. It's so unique, and, they've never really dealt with anything like this, especially the NFL. So we're not really sure how to go about this. And I think they're kind of learning as they go. Like we've said before, it's a fluid situation, and they're doing the best they can to kind of get things into place, put programs into place, still following all, regulations and guidelines. But it's tough. I mean, they're, like I said, they're learning as they go. Now, Matt, you touched on Jimmy Garoppolo, him going into his second full year. I recently talked with Kyle Posey of Niners Nation. Make sure you guys check out that video if you haven't already. And he also talked about the 49ers being better or worse than last year. And one of the first things he touched on was people are only going tit for tat, players, added players, that left. But he also mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo going into his second year amongst, a bunch of other players as well. Debo, Fred Warner, guys like that are getting another year in their system. Are the 49ers as a whole going to be impacted by this, and make that would be a main factor as to why they're not as good as they were last year?
I think they'll be affected, but like I said, everybody's going to be affected. So I don't think that can be used as an excuse if they're going to be better or worse. The fact of the matter is you still have to go out there on Sundays and play the game. So they'll have every opportunity, just like everybody else, to do the best they can in the situation. And it comes down to the players doing their job and playing. And, if Kyle Shanahan is the coach that we all think that he is, and, Robert Saleh is the defensive coordinator that we think that he is, and John Lynch has done his job in the offseason, then this team should be set up to make another run, plain and simple. So using the situation as a barometer of whether or not they'll get back there, I think is a bit obtuse. I don't think that should be factored in at all, because everybody's affected. It's not just the 49ers. So the big thing is, the 49ers will come into the season healthy. The 49ers will come into the season with some playmakers. The 49ers will come into the season coming off of a deep playoff run, meaning they'll have experience, and hopefully they can turn that heartbreak into motivation for this season and do something with it, But I don't think that this situation should be an excuse for them whatsoever.
Yeah, Kyle actually also touched on that the fact that they're so young, they're able to kind of take that hit on the chin, the loss in the Super Bowl, and it should motivate them even more to come out. If somebody was more towards the end of their career, they're probably thinking, man, you know, I just missed my shot. That's it. But these guys they're so young and they're so willing and motivated to get back into it, make things right their wrongs. I think it's actually going to be a benefit to them. But that's going to do it for us today, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Our handles are below on the screen. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to this video.
Go ahead and hit the bell for notifications because we're bringing you content every day of the week.
That's right. And make sure you check out 49ershive.com. Hit the Shop 49ers Hive tab. Use code JS74 for 15% off your purchase. Thanks, guys.